Livy has handed down a tale to us about a knight named Virginius. He was a man of honorable birth, rich, well befriended, and of sterling worth. This knight had a daughter by his wife. There were no other children in his life. Of an excelling loveliness was she, above all others that a man might see. Nature had shown a sovereign diligence in forming her to such an excellence, as if she wished to say, "Look, I am nature, and this is how I form and paint a creature. When so I choose, who dares a counterfeit? No, not Pygmalion, though he forge and beat, color and carve forever. I maintain that Zeuxis or Apelles would work in vain to color or to carve, to forge or beat, if they presume to make a counterfeit. For he that is the maker principal appointed me his vicar general, to fashion creatures all that ever were, and paint them as I please. For in my care lies all that's under moon, and wax or wane, I form them all. I do not work for gain. My Lord and I are leagued in close accord. I made for the worship of my Lord, and so I do with all my other creatures, whatever be their color or their features." This was, I think, what nature meant to say. The maiden was 14, on whose array nature had spent her care with such delight, for just as she can paint a lily white, red in a rose, and teach it to unfurl her petals, so she touched this noble girl. Ere she was born, her limbs so lissom she had touched with color where they ought to be. Phoebus, her mass of tresses with a gleam, had dyed and burnished from his golden stream. And if her beauty was beyond compare, her virtue was 1,000 times more rare. There lacked no quality in her to move the praises sober wisdom would approve. Chaste of her body and her soul was she, and so she flowered in her virginity, with all humility and abstinence, and temperate and patient innocence, with modesty of bearing and of dress, and showed in speech a modesty no less. Though I dare say as wise as Pallas she was, simple in her words and womanly. She used no fancy terms and affectation of learning, but according to her station. She spoke, in all and everything she said, she showed that she was good and gently bred. Shamefast she was, and maiden shamefastness, and constant in her heart. She was express and conquering sloth to fill the busy hour. Over her mouth had never Bacchus power. For wine and youth swell Venus and desire, much as when oil is cast upon the fire. Indeed, her native goodness unconstrained so prompted her that she often feigned some sickness to escape from company where there was likelihood of ribaldry. As well there may be, junketings and dances are good occasions for lascivious glances. Such things as these may soon to easily make a child bold and ripe, as one can see. That's very dangerous, and long has been, for all too soon she learns to play the queen, and show how bold she is when she's a wife. And all you ladies that in middle life are put in charge of younger gentlefolk, pray do not think I speak as to provoke your anger. Think that your appointment springs from either one or other of two things, either that you were chaste and did not fail to guard your honor, or that you were frail, and therefore knowing well the ancient dance, you have forsaken your intemperance forever. Teach them then for Jesus' sake, and never slacken. Virtue is at stake. Just as a poacher who forsakes his crimes and leaves his trade in villainy betimes makes the best gamekeeper, he's just the man. Keep you your charges. If you will, you can. Never belittle or connive at vice, lest you should pay damnation as the price. For those who do are traitors, never doubt it, and so give heed to what I say about it. Top of all treason, sovereign pestilence, is the betrayal done on innocence. Your fathers and your mothers, let me add, however many children you have had, yours is the duty of their supervision, as long as they are bound by your decision. Beware lest the example you present, or your neglect in giving chastisement, cause them to perish. Otherwise, I fear, if they should do so, you will pay it dear. Shepherds too soft who let their duty sleep encourage wolves to tear the lambs and sheep. One parable's enough, you understand. Let me return to what I had in hand. This girl who is the theme of my address was such as not to need a governess. The way she lived, if other girls would look, could teach them more of goodness than a book. In all that should concern a virtuous maid, she was so prudent, bountiful, and staid, and common fame was eager to confess her matchless beauty, and her kindliness. Lovers of virtue praised her and gave proof of her deserts, though envy stood aloof. Envy that glowers at favor like a thief, and gloats to see another come to grief, a phrase that Sir St. Augustine noted down. This girl one morning went into the town towards the temple with her mother too, as one may see a girl will often do. Now at that time there was a judge in charge over the city and the land at large. And so it happened that he cast his eye upon this girl as she was passing by, and narrowly appraised her. As he viewed her loveliness, a sudden change of mood entered his heart, and, feeling himself caught by her attractions, secretly he thought, I'll have that girl whether I sink or swim. At once the devil entered into him, whose machinations then began to stir and teach him how to have his will of her. He knew quite well that neither force nor fee could suit his purpose in the least degree, for she had powerful friends, and what was more, her sovereignty of goodness closed the door. On his desires he could not hope to win her soul or body to an act of sin. So, after much reflection, he sent down for a known blackguard living in the town. As low and cunning tricks as he was bold, he came in secret, then the tale was told. And having heard, it was made to swear never to tell a soul, and should he dare so much as whisper, he should lose his head. When he agreed to all that had been said of his accursed plan, the judge was glad and gave him precious gifts, the best he had. When they had framed their whole conspiracy from point to point to suit the lechery that was to be enacted on the sly, thought, though you shall hear about it by and by, home went the fellow, Claudius was his name. This treacherous judge that was so lost to shame was surnamed Appius. For the thing's no fable, but quite historical, and many able. Historians will vouch the gist of it. This treacherous judge, I tell you, set his wit to work and went about without delay to gratify his lust. There came a day when the false judge, authorities report, as was his custom, took his seat in court and gave his judgment upon various cases. All of a sudden, in this fellow races, cried, My lord, I beg with your permission for justice in my pitiful petition. Touching my suit against Virginius, if he denies it, says it was not thus, then I shall prove it and produce good witness to testify the truth of it and fitness. In absence, said the just, of the accused, definitive award must be refused. Summon him, state your case, and I will hear it. Gladly you shall have justice, never fear it. Virginius came to learn the judge's will, and instantly they read the cursed bill. These were the terms of it, as you shall hear. To you, Lord Appius, it shall appear, on showing of your poor servant Claudius, how that a certain knight Virginius, against the law, against all equity, and an express injunction lodged by me, retains a servant that is mine by right, one that was stolen from my house by night. When she was very young, I can support the charge on witness, may it please the court. My lord the judge, whatever he may say, the girl is not his daughter, and I pray my slave may be restored by your good will. This was the tenor of his cursed bill. Virginius stared in horror at the churl, but quickly, ere he could defend his girl and prove it on his honor as a knight, or bring a low host of witness as he might, that was all false his enemy had stated. This cursed judge, who never so much as waited to hear the answer of Virginius, spoke out at once and gave his judgment thus. I rule this fellow is to have his slave immediately. The case is very grave. Your house shall not protect her. Fetch the girl. I say the court awards her to the churl. And when Virginius, this excellent knight, had understood the judge's doom aright, and knew his daughter on compulsion must be handed over to the judge's lust, home he returned, and seated in his hall, he sent a servant, bidding him to call his daughter to him, and with ashen face, deathly and cold, gazed on her lowly grace. Fatherly pity pierced him to the heart, and yet he did not falter in his part. Daughter, he said, Virginia, I must name the ways that lie before you, death or shame. One you must take, alas that I was born. O judgment undeserved, O my forlorn and innocent girl to die upon the knife. O my dear daughter, ender of my life, you that I fostered up with such delight, whose thought that has never left me day or night. O daughter, you that are my last of woe, and last of any joy that I shall know, be patient, O my gem of chastity, and take your death, for that is my decree. And it is love, not hate, would have you dead. My pitying hand must strike and take your head. Alas, that ever Appius saw your face, to give false judgment in a treacherous case. He told her then all you have heard before. Of what had happened, I need say no more. "Oh, mercy, dearest father," said the maid, and as she spoke, she came to him and laid her arms about his neck, as oft she did, and the tears flooded under either lid. Thus, as she wept, "Oh, dear father, dear," said she, "am I to die? Is there no remedy?" "None, none, my dearest daughter, hope is dead." "Oh, give me time, dear father," then she said, "let me lament my death a little space, for Jephthah gave his daughter so much grace, as to allow her time to sorrow in, before he slew her, she had done no sin. God knows but ran the first among them all, to welcome him in solemn festival." And on the word she fell into a swoon, but when her faintness passed, she rose as soon, and thus addressed her father unafraid. "Blessed be God that I shall die a maid. I'd take my death rather than take my shame. So do your will upon me in God's name." And having spoken thus, the child implored that he would smite her softly with his sword. And then once more she fainted and lay still. Her father, sorrowful in heart and will, smote off her head and took it by the hair, sought out the judge and gave it to him there, sitting in judgment in the open court. When he beheld it, Livy makes report. He rose and gave the order to his men to take the knight and hang him there and then. 1,000 men came surging from the city, thrusting their way into the court in pity and hope to save the knight. The news had flown, the treacherous iniquity was known, for there had been suspicion of the thing, bred from the way the churl had sought to bring his charge against the knight. With the consent of Appius, they knew his lecherous bent. And so it was the people had arisen, they took that judge and cast him into prison. And there he slew himself, and Claudius, him that was the instrument to Appius, they took and would have hanged upon a tree, but that Virginius and Clemency begged for his exile. They could scarce refuse, else he would certainly have got his dues. The rest were hanged, the greater and the less, that had been party to this cursedness. Here one can see how sin is paid in wages. Beware, for no one knows how God engages, or when to smite the sinner, or how the worm of conscience will bring terror to the firm. And wickedness, however secretly, though none should know of it but God and he. Be he illiterate or a man of learning, how soon the blow will fall, there's no discerning. I offer you this counsel, let it make you forsake your sins before your sins forsake you.